The Marinade.
There's no O in marinade. Let's try it one more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
The Marinade.
Marinade.
Bone marinade. The
That's
Marinade.
The Marinade. With Jason Earle.
I'm a broken man. Go where I don't wanna go. Do what I don't wanna do. Know what I don't wanna know. A woman told me there's a calling on my life, and my face was shining. Not be afraid of the light. There are spirits haunting me. It's either real or it's just some sort of a disease.
Welcome to The Marinade with Jason Earle, episode 26, the fourth and final of our 2018 in Review series. I've invited a few artists whose work I appreciate to record episodes discussing our favorite albums of 2018 and then just getting down about creative process. My good friend Brian Killeen joins us for a very special episode to talk about Lowe's Double Negative. Brian is one of the smartest, funniest, most interesting people that I get to be around, and he frequently turns me on to films or albums that I'll likely enjoy that are also going to help me grow as a person, and every conversation that I have with Brian leaves me better than I was before. You can find Brian's music at Killeen, KILLEEN.XYZ, and then go look up some stuff by his former band Plain vs. Cult at plainvscult.bandcamp.com. Ladies and gentlemen, such a treat, such an honor. Brian Killeen talking Lowe's Double Negative.
To wake me up like a Lazarus dead. Gonna be the man you want. Never ever give in. My kaleidoscope always best. Colors and ways unexpected. Can I dig up my own grave? But I gotta raise that dead.
Yeah. Last week. Oh, it's great. I mean, like in the morning, I sit at that desk and drink my coffee, check, and do morning pages. These are dynamic mics.
Yeah.
So, like, I usually just hold it. It's okay. Like, if you want to sit forward, that'll work.
Yeah.
Or you can just pick it up.
Is there gonna be a lot of like static and like bumping
No.
around if I like boom, 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 if I hold it?
If you hold it like that, it's great.
Like if I move around a lot, is there any like no?
It's not too bad.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Dude, thank you so much. We got Brian Killeen, and we are talking about Low. The band Low. Double Negative was the record. Why did you choose that one?
Well, I think it's ironic that the record's called Double Negative because there's absolutely nothing negative about the album whatsoever. Low has been a band that spoke to me, as many people, many moons ago. They're just a spiritual experience listening to that band. This is their first album in 3 years, I think. So I was like super stoked to actually get some new low music. And the reviews were just incredible. So there was a sense of urgency to pick it up. I think sonically it's like unlike any album they've made, really. It's a totally studio heavy album. And they're just artists that have always pushed themselves to do something beyond themselves every single album. And I think that's important.
Yeah. How much is that when you think about your own process? How much does that sentiment, that idea of pushing yourself, inform your process?
It can be a blessing and a curse, I think, because I think for me that can kind of get in the way of the actual self-conversation that's natural and organic. So I actually try not to allow that to shape my music too much. That's from a listening point of view. I like to seek out people that are pushing limits because it makes me want to create. But when I shake the Etch-a-Sketch and just I don't put any pressure on myself. I just try to let my spirit speak.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I don't know, like I do, I talk to a lot of folks about this kind of thing, and I feel like a lot of times there is a pressure that people put on themselves. So that's wonderful. I love that analogy too, or that metaphor that you shake the Etch-a-Sketch.
I think at some point every musician, every artist in general does put pressure on themselves.
Right.
I know from like the initial stages of me making music, there was some pressure to get out there, work hard, like constantly create, whatever. But as time went on, I realized, okay, you're doing this. Like, this is it. You found your lot in life, and this is it. So just sit back and enjoy the ride and let your inner self speak. And I think for me, like when I do that, that's when the greatest results are yielded. And I think when I'm forcing things, I'm stifling all the colors that are available on that palette.
That makes a ton of sense. And I think because the interesting thing there is the tension between getting up and doing the work and consistently doing the work, but also allowing your inner artist to speak.
Absolutely. It's sort of like you want to be disciplined without disciplining yourself.
Right.
Like, without being conscientious of doing it.
Right. Because you don't want to get caught in the process.
Yeah.
That's maybe not the way I want to put it, but you don't want to get caught in the rote doing of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you got to do the thing, and you got to do it consistently. Otherwise, you're not going to get any better.
Right. And at some point, you find that sort of, like you're saying, like the rote, like the equation that works for you, and then you just sort of store that in your, emotional muscle memory, and it's just there.
Right.
And so I think I'm almost there. Not quite yet, but I can see it on the horizon now.
Yeah.
So
I was reading one of Brian Koppelman. You know who Brian Koppelman is?
No.
He wrote Rounders.
Oh, okay.
He writes the show Billions. He has an amazing podcast called The Moment that I talk about probably way too much on the show. But he's kind of like a hero of mine. And he does Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way, and he gets up and does his morning pages every morning. And I've been doing it for a while, and I had this moment yesterday where I was doing my morning pages, which is basically just a brain dump. But sometimes stuff comes up. And so I was in the middle of it, and I was like, oh, that's a good idea. And I had this tension between, do I just keep dumping, or do I stop and chase this idea? So I stopped and chased the idea. And I'm glad I did. And who knows if anything will come of it, But I'm glad I did, because then I just went right back to my morning pages and everything was fine. And somebody asked him that question on Twitter, and he said the same thing. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm validated.
Sure.
My compliment does it that way,
yeah.
So that works.
Yeah.
Because otherwise that idea may have just completely been gone.
I'm glad we're talking about this, because I just yesterday I had a melody floating around, and I am the laziest person when it comes to doing just that, like stopping in the moment and capturing something, and you have to do that. Mm-hmm. And I did. I just stopped what I was doing, and I sat down and I worked it out, and I recorded it, and and it's there now.
Good.
It's prisoner.
Good.
It can't.
What does that look like? You have a little like recorder that you play into?
I have a tape recorder. I have my Mac.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I use my phone. Whatever's available.
You just play it on your guitar? Or?
Yeah.
What about if you're out at like...
Like would I like hum it to myself? No.
Yeah, I mean...
kind of, yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
I've got some really weird little audio bites on my phone, just like any other creative person out there.
Right.
And then I open that vault every once in a while. I'm sitting there bored at night before I go to bed. I'm like, what is this? Like, was I drunk at a bar one night? What is this? But there's some great stuff in there. I mean, Again, like back to the idea of urgency, like I think it's really important that when something is speaking creatively in your spirit, that it needs to, escape from that chrysalis phase and get out. And so you have to listen to it.
Right.
You have to open the gate and let it fly. But at the same time, there is also the value of the vault. And sometimes revisiting things can bear fruit.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I'm bad about that. I always have a journal on me, and I'm always writing down ideas. And like last night, I wrote quite a bit. I just needed to get it out.
Yeah.
I'd had like a really long creative day, and I got to the end of it. Nobody else was around me. I had to get it down. So I got it down, but it ended up getting kind of intense, like in points, and it was flowing, but my anxiety doesn't want to return to it today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm sure I'll do it later. But in my head, I'm like, I don't, there was just, it was cathartic, and I didn't expect it, right? I didn't know that I needed it in that moment, but I did, and I clearly did. And so now I'm kind of like apprehensive about going to it, because for a couple of reasons. One is I may feel pressure to do something with it, right? So then there's that anxiety. And then the other is just the anxiety of it not being any good, which is a stupid anxiety. Who gives a shit if it's any good?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't. That's like not even like. You can't like be your own judge and jury constantly. Like,
right.
You can't. And when we all do it, I'm going to sit here and say that I haven't done that. But more recently with music, I haven't been recording myself a lot. I've just been playing and trusting the idea. And I mean, I'll work out the parts and try to arrange a song, but I'm just sort of like letting things flow, which is what initially when I started doing this, I didn't do that. I was like analyzing everything, every change, every chord change, every lyric, every last minute detail of the cadence of how I was singing a lyric or how I was pronouncing a word even. Like, I mean, just all sorts of little nuances that I would pay attention to. And now, and I think it's probably, maybe it's because I'm maturing a little bit. I hope that's what it is, that I'm becoming more comfortable with the craft.
Yeah.
That I'm not doing that. I'm trusting my instinct. And I mean, a good friend of mine really taught me these lessons. Eddie Joe Martinez of Plain vs. Colt,
right?
My guitarist, and he was just instrumental in teaching me the worst pun ever for me, but for teaching me to just trust your instinct.
That's great. That is great and incredibly inspiring.
And it's so much harder than it sounds like. It's like,
yes.
But I think there's like a level of self-criticism that you have to have.
Sure.
At some point, otherwise, you're just you're not working. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not. I think sure you wanna be kind of discerning and make sure that you're doing something that matters to you, though. I think that's the big thing is like this these last 2 weeks have been super fun for me because I'm doing a thing that I think it was my idea that I think is good, and I am pursuing it. And maybe nobody likes it, maybe nobody gives a shit, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
This is different from what I have been doing. I'm still doing what I have been doing, and I want to continue to pursue that, but this year-end thing was just like this moment that came to me, and I started chasing it, and it's become this different thing. Like,
cool idea.
Yeah, like what I didn't expect. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about Low. I had like a list of
I'm surprised you never really.
And like I hadn't really listened to that.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
And now it's the only thing I've listened to for a week.
Their early stuff is incredible.
I've only listened to. I went back to. I don't have it in front of me, but I went back to one of the ones from the '90s.
Yes.
And it's great.
Oh my God. Yeah. They are a good friend of mine from the turned me on to them years ago, and I mean this is back in the day when you would like sit in like a fast food chain parking lot at 3 a.m. and like listen to each other's CDs and smoke cigarettes and like, and we would do that. We were just like either at Barnes and Nobles or like Rallies or some weird, and just like sit there and like grab a burger and we would just park the cars and like he had this really nice studio, so we were like the stereo, and so we were just like. He was like, "Oh yeah, have you heard this disc? Have you heard that disc? Have you heard this band, this and that?" And Low, and I was just like, and we're just sitting there listening to Low, like blaring in this like, Barnes and Noble parking lot, like 3 a.m. and these like harmonies, and people are like driving by. What are those people listening to? But it sounds like a funeral, probably like the layman or something. It's just like, it's very somber.
Yes,
yeah.
I was thinking like it makes me want to write. Like a dark but somewhat hopeful novel. It's like I want to write my own girl with a dragon tattoo. And that made me think about there are parts on this album on Double Negative that sound kind of like Trent Reznor just ran in there for a second and just was like making a movie score. Right. And then he just kind of popped back out and then they kept doing their thing.
Mm-hmm. There's a static ambience to the album. Like a lot of their older stuff is very raw, very organic. But there's still a lot of atmosphere, and I love creating atmosphere in organic ways. But again, this album is a much more processed album, but it isn't contrived or forced, or it still honors their spirit of being naturally inclined to the sound that they have. I think there's a lot of musicians they have a technical talent, but then they go seek out a sound and they cultivate the sound on with effects and processing, and they try to, which is awesome. And then there's other people that just sort of have the sound. And so Low, to me, have always been an artist that they have a sound that's naturally occurring. So this album was something different. And, in a very good way.
There's a very clear current that runs through the records I have listened to of theirs, but they have a pretty deep catalog. So I haven't.
Yeah, at this point, I
haven't gotten to where where I'm going to go with them now. Thank you.
Good.
Because I'm
mission accomplished.
Yeah, it's just I mean, so cool.
Yeah.
That Amazon. I use Amazon Music, and the like related artists that they suggested were Interpol, Beach House, Tom York, and Cat Power.
Gotcha.
Right? Like it makes
Cat
a ton
Power.
of sense. Doesn't it?
Love Sean Marshall.
Oh, amazing.
I think she has a new album coming out actually.
I saw that.
Yeah, I know she's touring again and she's playing. I think she played some festivals because she was kind of reticent for a while. And I saw, it's funny. I saw her play a one-off show. It wasn't in support for any album or anything. It was in Fort Lauderdale, and I think she is from South Florida, which I would have never thought.
Yeah.
And I guess she was just down there hanging out, and she was like, you know what? I want to do a show. And it was right after, what was the, she's done a couple of a jukebox, the cover collection that she did. Oh my God, it's amazing.
So good.
And so she had that blues band that she was playing with. And it was at the, there's a venue down in Lauderdale, the something room. It's just like this.
Bamboo Room?
No, it's like, it's on the strip down there, and it's like, I cannot for the life of me think of it, but it's just like a box.
Yeah.
But it sounds incredible, and she sounded incredible, and it was literally elbow to elbow in there. You could not practically breathe, but the energy was just absolutely electric. Like I felt like I was in the 60s that night. Yeah. And I told that to this guy standing next to me, and him and his girlfriend were just like, yeah, I feel like I'm at a Doors concert. Like, and it really had that vibe. Like, it was really dark in there.
Wow.
There had to be a few hundred people at least in this place.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible. She sounded so good. Yeah. And she was just sort of pacing the stage, walking back and forth, and you never knew if she was like, I'm done, if she was like in a good or bad mood, but she was just like feeding off the band's energy and the crowd, and it was just like the coolest time to see Cat Power like ever for me. I almost don't even want to see her again because I just want that memory of how she was that night. That snapshot of who Sean Marshall is as a performer is forever etched in my mind. It was amazing. It was so incredible.
You tend to you go to a lot of shows.
Yeah.
You are a consumer of music for sure. in all the best ways. And you go to you have a lot of really cool show stories.
I'm lucky, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about this year? Anybody in particular?
Got to go see Nico Case.
Yep.
I've never seen her. Definitely going to be there for that one. Probably going to go see Kurt Weill again. That's always an incredible experience. I mean, when you live 100 yards from the Plaza Theater, you really have no excuse to miss Jeff Tweedy if he's Jeff Tweedy's going to be down the street from my apartment, so I'm probably going to make that one. Yeah. I'll probably be there for that one. I think Peter Murphy, if he's not being didn't he just get like arrested or something? He was like throwing bottles at the crowd. Yeah, it was like this. Yeah, Peter Murphy. I don't know why. I mean, what the situation was, but I guess like there was a show and like, he was throwing something at the crowd.
You can't throw bottles at the crowd anymore?
Yeah, I know, right? I mean,
Trump.
Yeah, man. Like, so he's going to be performing at the Plaza Theater in a couple months. So there's a lot of great shows coming to the Plaza Theater.
It's
so
amazing.
What a great venue.
Yeah, the Truckers are playing with Lucinda Williams.
That's
and
the one
Erica
I was thinking
Winterstrom.
of. Yes, not going to miss that either.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What an incredible
Those are your
lineup.
people, man.
Yeah, that's wheelhouse for me right there.
Yeah.
Man. Those are three of my favorites. I mean, Erica Winterstrom made quite possibly my favorite record of 2018.
Is that right?
Yeah, Sweet Unknown. It's just so beautiful. And she like went to Peru or somewhere and did ayahuasca and came back totally changed and wrote this like hopeful, gorgeous record.
Oh,
Just
wonderful.
so positive.
Oh, wow.
Every time I put it on, I'm just like wanting to hug everyone. And,
Yes.
that's not what I usually listen to. I'm usually listening to like Slit Your Wrist, sad songs.
Well, but there's something to be said for that. I think when, it's so awesome to see an artist that has been on a path for a while and then they just remove themselves from that path like completely, like, and they come back renewed. It's I think I need to do that. I'm hopefully going to do that this summer. I'm planning on traveling out west for a little while. And I mean, I've been thinking about it constantly.
That's
like,
awesome.
I really want to go to New Mexico and Arizona and do some riding and camping and just reflection, man. It's time. It's time. I haven't done it in a while.
Right.
When I lived in the Pacific Northwest, I was doing it all the time.
Right.
It was just like work, reflection. And now it's just like, I mean, Orlando's such an amazing place, but it is an urban center. So I think sometimes you have to make a concerted effort to get out of that.
That's true.
And so it's been on my mind. It's been on my spirit, and I really want to get out there this summer. Yes, it's exciting.
That's a great point. We are surrounded by a lot of beauty and an opportunity for solitude, but to get to it isn't necessarily all that easy.
Yeah.
You got to make the effort. And especially if you think about some of our greater assets, like the beach being right there, most of that is so built up. Like you can go to Canaveral and go to the state park. I mean, the national park.
For sure. You have to find the little enclaves of solitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what a beautiful place to reflect, but it's really difficult to reflect when there's like a custard spot right down the
I have
street.
to painfully admit that I think I take the beach for granted because I grew up here. Like I'm one of those people. I'm just like the beach. It's like it is sublime, and I love going out there, and I go often.
Yeah.
But it's the worst attitude I know, but I do take it for granted.
I get that. I mean, I think there are things that like rivers that I take for granted because I grew up in Central Florida. And there's a lot of really beautiful meandering, slow current rivers with cypress trees and alligators and herons and all that kind of stuff. And here I am in my
waiting birds.
2:00 in the afternoon on a Sunday.
The ibises.
Yeah, exactly. There's all that good stuff.
I'm always the guy that when I go, there's a couple of parks in town I go to all the time to journal and hang and have my alone time. And one in particular, Mead Gardens, I go there all the time. Yeah. It's a very special place for me. And I'm always that guy that's walking on the trail and there's like this huge crane or an ibis or a blue heron. And they're staring at the water trying to find that one fish or whatever it is that they're trying to get, and I mess everything up for them. They get scared, and And I remember when I was first getting into photography, I was reading all these articles about how to properly shoot wildlife.
Yeah.
Like you're not supposed to molest the animals in any way, shape, or form. You're not supposed to disrupt them or interact with them directly because it's an unnatural process. And so I was like, these words spoke harshly to me, and so I'm like going out there trying to like, snapshot all these birds, and I just end up scaring them. So I feel horrible.
I didn't know photography was one of your pursuits.
It's my my ticket to adventure, as I call it. It's
Cool.
really it kind of like, it's sort of it gets me out and about, and yeah, imagery is powerful. It's always been a powerful medium for me to gravitate towards. I love it. Yeah, and it's really cool because I have like no professional aspirations with it whatsoever. It truly is, for all practical means of the word, a hobby for me.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it's just something to enhance my creative process and get me out of the house, and yeah,
That's
really
great.
cool. So like without even trying, I always just come across these little nuggets of inspiration and input for my music, without even really looking for them. So it's cool.
Can you think of a specific example?
Oh, absolutely. Hopefully, if we get to listen to it, my song "Cross Country." I used to go hiking over at Moss Park, and I've taken a lot of shots back there. Some really beautiful, sort of like pine scrub, typical Florida landscape stuff back there, and beautiful trees. And I came across some racial slurs actually that were hung on a couple of the trees that I was walking by on the trail. And so I snapped a bunch of shots of them, and I was sharing them with friends, and they were just like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And so it was just, it was just like this. And I remember that day too, like I was out there, it was during the wintertime, and I was alone, and like there's nobody out there. It was like this, like, Walking Dead like type situation. I feel like what's the guy's name in Walking Dead, the main character, like
Rick.
Lincoln. Yeah, Rick. Like I feel like Rick. I'm just wandering around, and I thought to myself, I'm thinking to myself, I'm kind of afraid right now.
Oh, wow.
That these types of people would be dwelling in this place of peace and beauty, and here I am out here, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, what else is out here? Who else is out here? Like, if this is here, what else could be possible? And so it really, it was kind of a sad day because I went out there to, rejuvenate and be alone with God, and then I just kind of ran into this like really shitty thing. And
it sounds like Lowe's Double Negative should have been playing like in the background at this moment.
So, yeah, I know, right? I just turn around and Lowe's like in the they're like behind a couple of pine trees. They're just like, it's all right, man. They're like jamming. Yeah. Trent Reznor jogs, but he's jogging on the trail. He jogs by.
Erica Winterstrom comes in and plays a nice hopeful song.
Peter Murphy is throwing beer bottles from a tree at people. Yeah. Some bear is dodging them and throwing them back. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's great.
So yeah, man. So luckily I had my camera with me, and I snapped some shots, and
the lyric to that song basically says that exact thing, right? Where you see
yeah, it's just kind of a narrative thing where I just describe the situation. And it's funny because I just had moved back from Seattle, and not to sound like some Seattleite or Pacific Northwest snob, but it was like I remember saying to myself, "Yeah, you're back home," which I mean that's not true. I mean there's racism and ignorant people everywhere, and but it was just like I forgot about this.
Yeah, I mean I think so. I am one of the biggest critics of the South and one of its biggest champions, and especially like Ocala where I grew up. I'm the same way about that.
Yeah.
Right? Where I'm like, don't say a bad word about it, but I will motherfucker it.
Yeah.
Consistently.
Oh, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Yeah, and it was a wonderful place to grow up, but it's also a very segregated place. It's also a place that does not deal with its racism and does not acknowledge its racism collectively, I think.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times people looking at Florida from the outside forget how big our state is geographically and how many people are here.
For sure.
They forget how diverse it is, or don't know how diverse it is. They forget that people who live here, almost everybody's from somewhere else. And so you get all these people come. Of course there's Florida man this and Florida man that. Like that does not negate all of its beauty and its power and all of the incredible things about this place.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I thought about you the other day because I watched You Were Never Really Here.
Oh my God. You thought of me? Like I've ever bashed somebody's head in with a hammer. I don't think I've done that, but
No, just that you are a film enthusiast.
I know.
You told me about that one, and I remember after you watched it.
Wow.
And one of my favorite things is catching up with you right after you've seen a film, because you're so passionate about
Got my
it.
Siskel and Ebert mode.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it when you're in that place. What is it about film? Maybe that's too much to try to unpack.
It is an
but-
incredible film, by the way.
Oh, it's great.
One of the year's best, and I think just because of the sensitivity of the subject matter, it's going to get completely shunned at the Oscars. And so, but man,
That's a good
that's wow. Yeah, that definitely lived with me for days after viewing that movie.
I almost watched it a second time, but I was like, I'm not emotionally ready for that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like I wanted to see it again, but I was still drained from seeing it. I watched it Friday night. That's when it was.
It's important to do because a movie like that is so in your face and it's so powerful that your experience of it is larger than life and you miss so many nuances and details, and
Right.
so it's easy to do. So yeah, second viewing is probably at some point beneficial.
Well, and that, I'm imagining you probably. I don't think we've ever seen a film together, but I would imagine you probably consume it the way that I do. I get totally lost.
Same here. Oh, yeah.
Totally, like I tense up
Yeah.
and I cry and
Yep.
I laugh and it's like I don't watch films as often as I'd like to because it's such an experience for me and I can't physically and emotionally handle it.
I just went to see Schindler's List last weekend for the re-release, the 25th anniversary, and I know Spielberg was saying how it's more relevant now because of all the different types of racism that are existing right now in the world, and he really wanted, and obviously also to just educate the new generation on the tragedies of the Holocaust. And I just felt like I didn't want to spend my Saturday night doing that, but like I saw that it was playing, and I was just like, all right, it's time,
Yeah.
And I'm just so glad I did. It was such a powerful movie.
Well,
But
that's another good point. That as much as I hold to what I just said about how exhausting it is, I don't think I've ever invested in a film that I figured was probably going to be good or that was recommended to me, and then at the other end of it went, nah, I shouldn't have done that. It's like
Right,
sort of like
right.
I've never gone for a jog and been like, shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have exercised today.
Yeah, and it's fun too to stumble upon wisdom as well. Like when you don't really know too much about a film, but you might have heard a little bit of buzz about it or the name, and then you go in and you're just like blown away, like you can't believe, and you almost feel like the film was made for you. The narrative is it's an intimate one-on-one telling to you personally.
Right.
And I love how film can do that for me. Like I almost feel like film is like the counseling room of the world. That might be changing in the last decade because of how YouTube and streaming and social media has sort of become the prominent gate to all things artistic. But for the longest time, I do feel that way, that film was sort of like the counseling room of the world, where this was the most powerful and most most grand forum to get your idea out to the world.
Yeah.
And but it's so huge, yet it can feel so intimate. And so I don't go see comedies or like really happy movies. I go to see movies that can sort of counsel me and teach me about the world. So hopefully there'll be another film coming out soon that
It is so big though, Brian. That's like movie theaters give me a ton of anxiety, and
Oh really?
yeah, a ton. I love going.
Just like being in the dark, or like with the people like,
no,
or like what?
It is the enormity of what has been created.
Wow.
I feel so insignificant when I watch a great film.
Ah,
in a movie
okay.
theater.
Yeah.
It's almost like if you put me in space.
You feel anxious by that. Interesting.
Yeah, it makes me anxious.
Interesting. Yeah.
Like I remember
See, it's just the opposite for me. Like I all my anxieties are actually in a way just taken from me because
That's great.
I realize in that moment that, wow, yeah, you're just completely mutually exclusive from this entire thing. But I'm not, because I'm experiencing it. But this is not your story. This story is nothing, has nothing to do with you, and it's a gift for it to be shared.
Yeah. Well, I just started making sure we weren't too loud. Because I'm getting so excited. I think the first time I remember noticing it was Batman Begins.
Yeah.
I watched Batman Begins in the theater, whatever year that was.
Yes, that was like in the early 90s, I think.
No.
Batman Begins? Oh, you're talking about the Nolan one. Yeah.
One.
Oh, of course. That was
not like Batman Forever.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know why I thought that. Yeah, I just had Danny DeVito and Penguins. Right, like no, yeah, that was like 2005.
Okay, yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
Yep, I watched that in the theater, and that was the first time. I think I had felt that anxiety before.
Yeah.
That was the first time that I sat there and was like, I think this is a panic attack. Yep, pretty sure this is a panic attack that I'm having right now, and I stuck it out, and I brought my awareness to my breath and stuck out the film, and it's one of my favorites.
Sure.
But yeah, that was the first time that I was like, holy shit, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And recognizing that, like, wow, I can't do anything that anyone in this film is doing. Like, I'm incapable of everything that they've done. Now I might have a different attitude. Now I might think like, okay, I could probably sit in a writer's room and have something to contribute, but just the scale of a film like that and what they're capable of doing. I mean, watching Joaquin Phoenix the other night, just like what he's able to do. And then it made me think about his other roles. It made me think about him as Johnny Cash, and it made me think about
he truly he transforms himself completely.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that speaks to me so much about him is that the physicality of the characters that he plays.
Yep.
He truly like physically captures the person that he's portraying.
Yeah.
And in this film, you were never really here. You were never really there or here?
You were never really here. I kept saying you were never really there, which is a different thing. Why can't I think of that's a work of some sort.
Right. That's what I'm thinking too.
Was that the film that he made with Casey Affleck?
I'm not right. He made the whole thing where he was like, it was a documentary about him or something.
Yeah, where like he's supposed to
I'm not really here.
I'm not really here.
Yeah.
That's why we're thinking that.
He's like, I'm never here. Like he's getting confused now. But
I'm nowhere.
He's like, I'm never really here ever.
Or
there. Even the movie I make is not really here.
I'm neither here nor there. Really.
Johnny Cash was never really here. None of us were never here. But I mean, just that scene in the movie where he's like driving and he's like, he's obviously he's got all those like pain issues and he's got the scar and like the from the war and all that, and he's just like popping pills and he's just like laughing to himself, but it's not even like because he's thinking something. It's like more like a neurological, just like reaction from the pills and like his spinal injury, and he's just like grimacing and driving the car and like it's just like it was definitely not a humorous movie at all. But I remember like chuckling at that point. Was like, oh my god, this guy is so hardcore. Like I'm believing everything. Last thing that I am seeing.
Yep.
And in this day and age, it is so hard to do. It is so hard to convince people making a film that what you are seeing is truth, and it is a reality in that screen, like that you are inside of while you're watching the film. And that movie was just so rich with reality.
Yeah.
And
they don't do a whole lot of, and again, I got to watch it a second time, but there aren't a lot of like cinematography tricks or anything. It's almost just like the force of the writing and the acting.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some
it's raw cinema
shots,
for sure.
But it's just kind of straight ahead. Like, here's this guy, here are these crazy things that he's doing and this fucked up situation he's in.
It's a character study for sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I don't want to give it away for people who haven't seen it, but the way it ends and the shot at the end.
There's some beautiful shots. I love that shot in the water when he's in the lake and he's just floating in the water.
Yeah.
And obviously Johnny Greenwood's soundtrack was just off the chain.
Right.
Anything that guy does, it seems like, you hate giving people like. I try not to be carte blanche when it comes to giving people compliments, but I mean, my God, it's like I can't think of one thing that guy has done that I'm just like, I mean, every single thing is just so like on point, and especially with his film compositions because he just really knows how to sonically approach the narrative of the film, like and give it the the soundtrack that it really needs. I feel like he studies the characters, and he the melodies that he writes, or just, I mean, sometimes it's not even melody based. It's more of just like noise and percussion and cadence, and especially with You Were Never Really Here, because there's a lot of pain and suffering going on in that character, and there's cello, but there's never really like melody.
Right,
there's drums, but there's never really like a beat.
Yeah.
And so it's like a real organic soundtrack, but it's just like noise.
Yeah,
it's
that's a good point. The music did stand out to me.
Yeah,
that is a really good point. And I took notes. I remember thinking, like, I can't wait to talk to Brian about this. I don't remember if I wrote down. Oh, there's that shit that I wrote last night.
Oh, nice. Oh, wow. You were definitely you
were.
yeah.
It turns into a poem at some point.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe there's some good stuff in there.
I remember thinking to myself too, I didn't know that he did the soundtrack to that movie, and like, a third of the way through, I'm like, man, this sounds like something Johnny Greenwood would do. Thinking that he didn't do it, and lo and behold, because I do stay to this day through the credits of every film. Yeah, because you're like, unless you're just really enjoying the music, or with IMDb and however many other databases, websites or whatever, like, why do you really need to do this? Like back in the day, you really needed to stick it through to see where do they shoot it. What locations did they use?
Yeah.
Who played that song? Like soundtrack and location. You always wanted to know.
I remember writing them down, like who sang the song.
Yes,
and stuff like that.
And now it's like, but I don't know, man. It's like my loyalty to cinema.
That's great.
It's almost like I can't allow myself to not stay.
I remember I dated a girl who used to do that, and I always thought she was crazy. And then I started, and then Chris and I got together, and Chris majored in film production.
Right.
So she has a degree in film production. So when we started going to films, then she's definitely gonna stick around for the credits. Like, forget looking it up on your phone. She wants to see it right there. She wants to have the whole experience, and she wants to pay respect to the people who made it.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I do that now, and I
that's their bow, man.
Right. And I don't know why, I don't know why I grew up in a culture where I didn't do that. It's not like I had the internet. I mean, we did, but later,
I worked on a local documentary when I lived in Seattle, and what a wonderful experience, capturing B footage and doing some filming, messing around with editing a little bit, and helping the director of the movie write. It was a documentary about a local architecture project. And I learned so much, and I had so much more of an appreciation of filmmaking after that experience, as you could possibly imagine.
Sure.
Just how that final product comes to be is it's just incredible, man.
It is incredible.
It's unreal, like that,
is.
Because everybody has their job.
Yes.
And it truly is a well-oiled machine, and
they're complicated jobs too.
Yep, absolutely.
Those aren't easy things.
Yeah.
None of those pieces are easy.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, and I think that everybody that's involved in filmmaking knows their job, and they all want to see that end product, and they know that in order to get there, you have to perform your job to the best of your ability with passion, even if, no matter how mundane it seems, or everybody wants to be the director, but if you have to rig lighting and mics in certain ways because that sound is going to be captured in a certain way, and it's going to really affect everything is important. Yeah. Every last thing is important on that team.
Right.
I had a small team on that documentary that I was working on, but it's just such a joy to work with people in a creative setting. It is honestly one of the greatest experiences of my life. All the projects I've ever had, whether it's a band, the documentary, I did some theater way back in the day, working with a team of other creative people to get to that end product is just, it's so awesome, man.
It's
great.
It's
so cool. I really love that experience. And that's one of the things that I love about being in a band so much.
Yeah.
Because you're part of this team that's making something that's larger than all of you. And
that's a good point.
It's cool, man. It's cool stuff.
How is I don't know if you want to talk about it on mic, but how are you putting together another band? Is that in the works?
No, right now
Okay.
I'm focusing on songwriting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and getting better at my craft. And really just getting comfortable with playing on my own again, because when I started playing in the coffee houses and all that stuff several years ago here in town, like I really got a rhythm going, and then the band started, and that kind of took off, and now it's just like it's like in one of those Looney Tune cartoons where like the bomb goes off and like the smoke clears, but then there's like like the main character, whoever it is, like is sitting there with like the piano teeth, and he's just like by himself, and he's alone. He's looking around. He's like, I made it, barely, So I kind of feel like I'm kind of in that phase of like, recovery.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing, because I'm rediscovering my voice, and I'm rediscovering some of my intentions,
Right.
creatively. So I'm in a good spot.
Good.
Yeah.
That's great, man. Well, dude, thank you so much for doing this.
It's been my pleasure.
I
I really enjoyed it.
appreciate this.
Yeah.
Is
Any
so
conversation
much
that
fun.
we ever have is a gift.
Likewise, man.
Yeah.
Likewise. Awesome. Thanks, dude. My guitar's over there. If you change your mind, you want to play one of your tunes.
That's awesome. So this is what you do, huh?
Your tune.
There is a trail I go walking at dawn. The mornings are cold and the mist is a storm. Down at the switchback, the sign on a tree. Racial slurs.
Brian Killeen, y'all. What a fascinating individual. Thank you so much, Brian, for your friendship and for your creativity and for sharing all of the above with us. I'm so grateful to Brian for his time and energy and for the outstanding songs he writes. That first song you heard at the beginning is a tune called Kaleidoscope. It's one of Brian's. And this one is called Cross Country Hatred. It's a tune that we discussed during the show. Lots of good things coming for Brian in 2019. So stay tuned to Killeen, KILLEEN.XYZ to follow Brian's work. And hopefully he ends up going on a little bit of a tour and coming to a town near you this summer. And if so, make sure you tell him hello from me and give him a big hug. Follow the Marinade on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you have not already, shoot us an email with feedback at marinadepodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from you. You can also find things all things Marinade at marinadepodcast.com. The all-new marinadepodcast.com, I might say. I've added the website-exclusive episodes in their own page, including those with Greg Hughes and Casey Anderson, both wonderful conversations. I've also added a blog where I can add some show reviews or album reviews, or maybe some of my own short stories or poetry, different things that I might find interesting. And there's a whole section for photography too, my concert photography, the work by the great Jen Ross that we've been fortunate enough to have accompany some of our episodes in the past. So on marinadepodcast.com, go check those things out. And also, if you want to connect on a deeper level, please consider joining our Patreon community. Head on over to patreon.com/marinadepodcast for details on how you can gain access to a Patreon exclusive show called Jason's Journey, where I talk about the moments that have shaped me creatively, as well as you'll get a chance to rep some Marinade swag, stickers, and we've got some hats on the way, and magnets, all other kinds of cool stuff with the art direction of Miss Chris Osborne at Real Artistic on social media, my partner in life and my favorite artist in the world. Our Patreon is a really cool community, and every little bit helps. So if you can swing it, we really appreciate it. All right, y'all. Now for what I'm getting down on, our regular segment where I let you in on the art that I'm currently consuming, the books, the films, the TV shows, whatever has my attention and is inspiring me at the moment. Chris and I just saw the film Beautiful Boy, through which I cried just about half the time, it feels like. It's really heartbreaking, but it's beautiful, and it's a story of true story of a teenage kid who struggles with depression and then ultimately becomes addicted to crystal meth. And the film really hit home for me, not because meth is something that I've experienced firsthand, but because addiction runs in my family, and frankly, I think runs kind of rampant throughout the town that I grew up in. We just lost somebody that was dear to me recently, related to addiction, and it's a film like that kind of put some perspective, helps you understand that everybody in different walks of life are dealing with similar struggles, but also that it's important to be empathetic and to come together and to try to help each other as much as we can, and also just talk about it. The more we talk about it, the less it's stigmatized, and I think that's really important. That's why I try to talk about anxiety and depression on this show. That's why I think it's important for us to discuss addiction. All of these things are important, and the less we can stigmatize them, the more people can find help and get better and continue to hopefully go through recovery. Check out Beautiful Boy. It's on Amazon Prime right now. As for music, I was walking home from watching our good friend Jordan Foley, our guest on episode 25, play a set, and I was inspired for whatever reason to listen to Elizabeth Cook's Exodus of Venus album. I've listened to Elizabeth's music plenty in the past, but something just struck me. I'm not sure what it was that made me want to listen to that particular record and really dive deep, and that was 2 weeks ago, and it's just about the only thing I've listened to since. It's brilliant. Look for an overdue review on marinadepodcast.com in the blog section, coming very soon, a review of that particular album. I'm currently reading Fear by Bob Woodward. The book, that's the book about the Trump White House. It is as scary as the name suggests, y'all. Bob Woodward spins a hell of a yarn, and I really think it's our duty, all of us, to become as informed as possible about what's going on with our government and to get the word out, to try to talk to people who may not understand what's going on, not in a condescending way, just in a real way. I think a lot of folks either don't understand exactly what a mess that place is, or don't care, and that's not okay, because it's really important that we as citizens in a democracy are engaging. I think you probably know I feel that way if you listen to this show at all. Our president is an unqualified asshole, y'all. Read that book. Thankfully, there are good folks like you who are not assholes, who exist and who interact with the show and listen to the show, and I thank you so much for your love and support in 2018. It was probably one of the best years of my life, certainly one of the strongest years of my life creatively, and 2019 looks like it's set to top that. I've had a really clear mind and clear heart and clear spirit so far this year, and have booked some amazing guests, and I'm excited to do some writing and podcasting and all kinds of other stuff. Thank you so much for your support. I love you. Until next time, cheers, y'all.
There is a trail I go walking at dawn. The morning